And ladies and gentlemen, once again, welcome to this show today on the 16th day of May 2022. Well, right now today we have lots to talk about and let's take a look at the weather. 24 degrees and mostly sunny. Yes, we have got rid of that cold front and it is now quite warm and humid. And one of the things that has been said is that you need to be very careful about mold in your houses. You would have seen that if you put your clothes out to dry, they did not dry out as they normally do right here in our bright, sunny and airy Brisbane and Queensland. But it's slightly different weather this time. So the air is all waterlogged. So it is quite humid, and through that humidity comes this temperature, a rise in the temperature as well, though it is going to ease in a few months. So the health authorities are warning everyone to take a look around the houses, be careful and be mindful of mold in the houses, which is not very hygienic as well. So today we have this new segment, then we will have the Daily India Report, and may I say that congratulations is in order for Govia Queensland for putting on a very, very successful Gurmeet Divas 2022, which was their 9th annual Gurmeet Divas, and I think it was very well presented and attended such good feedback. Later in the week, we'll bring to you all the glimpses of the events and things that really happened there. Well, right now we'll try and see if we can join our Prime Minister while he is in Springfield and see if we can join in.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Good morning. My name's Sam Higgins. I'm the LNP candidate for Blair. It's a pleasure to be here today in Springfield City, the new stage of Springfield Rise with Prime Minister Morrison. Springfield City is part of South East Queensland's fastest growing population growth area. It's spanning from here through the Ripley Valley and Ipswich. There's a lot of first home buyers in the area, so living here, a lot of amenities, facilities that are here, the shopping centres, the parks, the schools that you can see surrounding us. And we're going to meet some of them today, which are going to be Amber and Cody, who are very excited by our first home service super sedan. And we're also going to meet a gentleman, Binu, whose family have built their first home here using their home building scheme. So, on that note, I'll introduce the Prime Minister.
Thank you very much, Sam. It's great to be here with you. The Super Home Buyer Scheme is the next phase in how we're helping Australians to own their own home. And it works hand in glove with the policies that we've put in place to help those at another stage in their life to downsize. Now, this does two things. It ensures that we are reinforcing people's retirement savings, but we're also freeing up more housing supply, which does put downward pressure on the rising costs of housing across the country. This plan is about utilising people's own savings, their own superannuation, so they don't have to stand on the curb and watch house prices run away from them and they're unable to get in and own their own home. Now, as a government, we have had major progress in this area since the last election. Same time before the last election, I announced the Home Guarantee Scheme. And together with Home Builder, the first home super saver that we'd previously introduced that allows people to save for their deposit in their superannuation scheme at lower rates of tax, all of that together with our investments into affordable housing in the country through the National Housing Finance and Investment Corporation has seen 300,000 Australians and more get into their own home in the last 3 years. And for first home buyers, we had 164,000 last year who were able to buy their first home at a time when house prices were rising. That's up around 60,000 and more on what we would normally see on average in Australia for first home buyers. We're helping first home buyers and Australians own their own home. And this scheme, which says you're in control of your own money, you're in control of where it's invested, you're back in the driver's seat when it comes to fulfilling the aspirations that you have, this scheme enables you to do that. Now, it's a well-calibrated scheme. It's been well designed. We've thought it through carefully. We've ensured that you can only get access up to 40% of what's in your superannuation scheme. But importantly, once you ultimately sell the property, then you put the money back into your superannuation scheme, including any of the capital gains you've made in that time. And you know what? You don't pay tax on that either, because it's your own home. The money sitting in your super account, the earnings that are there, that attracts tax. But when you invest in your own home through your super scheme, it doesn't. And on the earnings that you've had from your own home, the capital appreciation and the original capital sum that you've invested in it goes back into your superannuation. The learnings we've had is that when people get to retirement, then if they own their own home, they are much better off and much less dependent on government support. They have more choices. They're more independent. What these two policies working together do is help achieve both people's retirement savings goals and their home ownership goals, which means that Australians have greater security and can plan for their future with confidence. Now, the downsizing plan that we've extended to those who are 55 years old and older, that is already making a very big difference for Australians, and particularly for women, for their superannuation. They disproportionately have invested more of what's gone back into people's super as a result of the downsizing plan. And we know women's superannuation is a real challenge. The plan we've put in place for downsizing is helping women have better retirement balances when they downsize their home. There have been other challenges that have prevented that along the way during their working life. And this policy has been helping women. And ensuring we reduce that age now to 55, it can only help more. So our plan is about putting Australians in charge of their future with their own money. It's their money. We're not going to tell them what to do with it. They'll make their own decisions, but we're not going to lock them away from it. We're not going to stand there and let them stand on the curb while the housing prices run away from them and they're not getting that opportunity. And we're meeting people here today who are going to take up that opportunity. We've met others who've already taken up the opportunity right here in Springfield, already built their home using the Home Builder program. So there's only one way you can get access to your money in your superannuation to help you buy your home, and that is to vote LNP. That is to vote Liberal and National this Saturday. Labor will never let you do it. They think it's their money to tell you what to do with. I believe it's your money. And to get access to your own money to help you buy a house, the only way to achieve that is to vote Liberal and National next Saturday.
So there you are, ladies and gentlemen, that announcement in Springfield this morning, and we know that later today the Labor is making another announcement in Springfield as well. We'll bring to you the whole report of that announcement tomorrow as well. So it is interesting that Springfield seems to be the springing board, the battleground at this point in time, quite a lot in focus. So it is good news for the Springfield community that the politicians are paying attention to that area, both parties are making promises and of community halls and funding projects. So we'll see how things turn out. Well, right now let's get back to the news channel, and Scott Morrison is in Springfield right at this point in time, but he's also officially launched the campaign.
Drawing inspiration from one long-serving Liberal leader and encouragement from another. Scott Morrison's trying to defy political gravity. This time around, he needs all the help he can get.
Wow, I wish I got that reception in Kooyong. How's that?
His deputy fighting for his own political survival, part of a Praetorian Guard.
This election is not a time to risk Labor.
To tell the story of the real Scott Morrison.
He really has been in charge of steering the ship through some of the choppiest waters that you could possibly imagine.
The scale of potential disaster was enormous.
Reminding voters of the crisis they'd endured.
I had one focus as your Prime Minister: save the country.
But offering an assurance the hard days are now behind them.
We stand on the edge of a new era of opportunity. Better days are now ahead.
In a campaign that's been focused on his record, the PM looked to the future and the dream of home ownership, unveiling a major new policy to help people get into the market. For the first time, Australians would be able to tap into their superannuation to buy their first home, investing 40% of their savings or a maximum of $50,000. When the house is sold, the same amount taken out of their super account would be tipped back in, along with a share of the capital gain. The scheme open to any first home buyers who have saved a 5% deposit.
This will be a game changer for thousands of Australian families.
What we saw today was the last desperate act of a dying government.
In an appeal to aspirational and older Australians, those wanting to downsize will be able to sell their family home and pour up to $300,000 from the proceeds into their super account, attracting sizable tax breaks. Previously limited to over 65s, it'll now be available to people over 55. And pensioners selling their principal property will be given more time to reorganise their financial affairs, leaving their age pension payments unaffected. Across town at his own rally, the Labor leader took aim at Scott Morrison's late shift in strategy.
The truth is that Scott Morrison won't change because he can't change.
Scott Morrison's got just 6 days to prove he can change.
I'm seeking a second term because I'm just warming up.
There is a path to victory for the coalition, but it's narrower and less obvious than it was at the start of the campaign. This is Scott Morrison's last big chance to appeal to the millions of disillusioned, disengaged and undecided voters on his quest to become the first Prime Minister in nearly 20 years to be re-elected for a second term. Jane Norman, ABC News, Brisbane.
So there you are, hot on the election trail. Well, right now we will see today what announcements are made in Springfield. I'll be heading off there later in the day for that announcement as well. Well, we've seen both sides. What are the independents up to?
I don't think Cathy would ever have foreseen this, but she has become a lightning rod for so many other independents. She's on and off planes. She's actually travelling all over Australia, helping the community independents organise their teams.
Thank you so much, Cathy. It is such a thrill to have you here and to support our campaign.
And showing them that this is possible.
Cathy McGowan.
Cathy's the godmother of the independent movement. Because she was so successful at what she's done, she's now in demand. She looks like your mum, she's sort of a harmless lady from the country, but she's very formidable and not to be underestimated.
I want to talk about campaigning.
Cathy's knowledge of working with those volunteers, understanding what an army on the ground means through a campaign is invaluable.
We are incredibly lucky to have the amazing Cathy McGowan here with us today.
These Teal Independents are posing as a real game changer in Australian politics and in this election campaign right now.
Please do make the most of me, so don't hold back.
Whether they're going to change politics permanently, change government, well, that will really depend on how successful they are on election day.
So in this coming election, there's so much at stake. It's going to be fierce. The coalition is not taking lightly to all these independents running, and they're fighting for cattle stations. They don't want to give up these safe seats.
Thanks for coming out today. Have you met Julie Bishop? It is a political network which is trying to get a hung parliament out of the next election and is trying to really target Liberal members of parliament.
Oh, look at you. Aren't you fantastic?
Your Zooms have been wonderful.
I'm so pleased.
Cathy McGowan was an independent for the seat of Indi when I was in Parliament. She's a very nice person and I know she worked hard for her electorate, but she's moved on. So I'm surprised that she's back supporting a community independent network.
That's the magic of what we're doing, is it bringing people together. Correct. It's so exciting. Correct. People give me the funniest titles. A godmother's a lovely title, isn't it? But really, I think former independent member for Indi is the title I'm most proud of.
And well done. Of course, the Teal Independence, many times it's been also said, how independent are they, or are they all operating as a group? Well, anyway, time will tell. But right now, Andrew Symonds, what a tragic news, what a tragic news.
A born entertainer who had fun playing the game he loved.
Andrew Symonds has it! A maiden Test match 100!
Cricket fans around the world are reeling at the tragic loss of Andrew Symonds. Police say Symonds was driving alone on this rural road outside of Townsville about 11 p.m. last night when his car left the road and rolled.
So the accident was actually heard by neighbours, by people who lived nearby. They were the first people on scene and alerted emergency services.
Paramedics attempted to revive Symonds, but he died at the scene.
In all likelihood, there was probably a young paramedic that grew up as seeing him as a hero. So for them to put all that aside and do what they did, we're incredibly grateful.
It's not known what caused the crash.
Andrew was a brother to all of us.
He was also a husband and a father. His wife Laura told News Corp, "We're still in shock. I'm just thinking of the two kids." Former teammates have shared their grief in online tributes to the man affectionately known as Roy. Adam Gilchrist simply wrote, "This really hurts. Think of your most loyal, fun-loving friend who would do anything for you. That's Roy." Jason Gillespie said, "Horrendous news to wake up to, utterly devastated." Symonds' passing follows the death of Shane Warne and Rod Marsh.
Unfortunately, I've been here too often this year under these circumstances. I can't quite believe it.
Oh boy, take that!
A prodigious talent, Symonds scored over 5,000 runs across 198 one-day internationals and was instrumental in Australia's World Cup success. He was also a shrewd off-spinner or medium-pace bowler and one of the best fielders of his generation.
What a wonderful piece of athleticism.
The Test arena was his biggest ambition, and perhaps his crowning moment was this, his first Test century, celebrating alongside his great mate Matthew Hayden.
He enjoyed every moment out there, whether it was with his bat, with the ball, on the field, and with his personality.
He certainly gelled communities throughout Australia. They didn't necessarily have to be cricket fans, they were just lovers of all things Australia.
A larger-than-life character who leaves a giant mark on the game.
A larger-than-life character definitely will be missed, and what a way to go, our thoughts are with the family and those two kids as well. Well, right now, on the other hand, we're looking at the interest rates rising. We will bring to you the full real estate coverage on Wednesday with Usha Chandra of GlobeNet Realty. But right now, let's take a look at what effects the rising rates might have.
It's generally agreed that we've got a cost of living crisis. In fact, it's the main election issue, although it's got nothing to do with politics. But don't worry, the RBA is on the case. Its solution? Make it worse. Yep, to deal with the problem of rising prices, the RBA is raising prices. Specifically, the most important price of all, the price of money. But that's the only way we've got to reduce inflation, by making our financial suffering a bit worse so we stop buying so much stuff and companies have to stop raising their prices. Will it work? Well, yes, it always works because the RBA keeps going until it does work. And it always hopes we have a soft landing. But often, we have to have a recession. That's what happened in 1974, 1982 and 1991, when unemployment went above 10%. We didn't have a recession in 2008, but it was close. We haven't had to worry about inflation for a while, so we've forgotten how brutal the Reserve Bank can be. Or we've been lulled by the new softer RBA saying it wants to see how low it can get unemployment. The trouble is, they got their inflation forecasts wrong. This is what they thought would happen, and this is what actually happened. And now they're playing catch-up. But this time, it's different. We've borrowed a lot more. Here's what the market punters think will happen to the cash rate. 3%. Reserve Bank Governor Philip Lowe and most economists say it'll be 2.5%. So what will that do to mortgage repayments? Here's what. So will that worsen the cost of living crisis enough to stop prices rising? Definitely. But it would have been better if the Reserve Bank had got its inflation forecasts right.
In lies the problem that the forecast for the inflation was way off target, and right now it's being put in to bring it in line, and rather than a soft blow, it will be a hard blow. Well, right now it's time to go to our daily India report.
Welcome to the Daily India Report that brings you reports, interviews, features and much more on India and the Indian diaspora. At the Global COVID Summit, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi calls for reforms in the World Health Organization.
On May 12, the Indian Prime Minister addressed the Global Virtual Summit on COVID. Modi said the World Health Organization must be reformed and strengthened to build a more resilient global health security architecture. Also, the rules of the World Trade Organization need to be more flexible. At the summit hosted by US President Joe Biden, Modi also said,
"We also call for streamlining WHO's approval process for vaccines and therapeutics to keep supply chains stable and predictable. As a responsible member of the global community, India is ready to play a key role in these efforts."
Modi said WTO rules, particularly TRIPS, need to be more flexible. Prime Minister Modi also highlighted that as a responsible member of the global community, India would continue to play an active role by sharing its low-cost indigenous COVID mitigation technologies, vaccines and therapeutics with other countries.
India's Genomics Consortium has contributed significantly to the global database on the virus. I am happy to share that we will extend this network to countries in our neighborhood. In India, we extensively use our traditional medicines to supplement our fight against COVID and to boost immunity, saving countless lives.
India has also laid the foundation for a WHO Centre for Traditional Medicine in India to make this knowledge available to the world.
The Indian rupee plunged to a record low for a second time on 12th May 2022.
The Sensex and Nifty lost more than 2% on May 12th and the rupee hit an all-time low as investors shunned riskier assets in the run-up to inflation data, which could bolster fears of more rate hikes. The Indian rupee plunged to a record low for a second time this week, hitting 77.63 against the dollar. It settled at $77.5025. Reliance Industries, HDFC, Bajaj Finance and Bajaj Finserv were among the top drags on the Nifty 50, falling between 2% and 3%. Adani Ports was the top percentage loser on the Nifty 50 index, falling 6%. The focus was on inflation data due today. The global sentiment was weaker after data showed that US inflation had risen sharply in April, deepening fears of aggressive policy tightening by the Federal Reserve and the global economic slowdown. Indian stock markets have in recent weeks been roiled by fears of sky-high inflation, a surprise interest rate hike, foreign fund outflows and a mixed set of corporate results. Foreign investors have sold Indian equities worth $2.27 billion so far this month, compared with a net buying of $967 million in the same period last month.
India's retail inflation has hit 7.79% in April, the highest in 8 years.
India's retail inflation surged to 7.79% in April 2022, largely driven by rising fuel and food prices, government data shows. The consumer price-based inflation figure stayed well above the Reserve Bank of India's upper tolerance limit for the fourth consecutive month. In April, the consumer price inflation expanded at its highest pace in 8 years. The previous high was recorded at 8.33% in May 2014. April's print was higher than 6.95% in March and 4.23% a year ago. Inflation in food basket rose to 8.38% in April from 7.68% in the previous month. Food inflation, which accounts for nearly half the consumer price index basket, reached a multi-month high in April and can remain elevated due to higher vegetable and cooking oil prices globally. The rate of price rise in the fuel and light category in the retail inflation basket quickened to 10.80% in April this year from 7.52% in the preceding month. In the oils and fats category, inflation remained at an elevated level of 17.28% in April, as Ukraine is one of the major sunflower oil producers in the world, and India importing a major portion of commodity from the war-ravaged country. Besides this, Ukraine is also key supplier of fertilizer to India. Vegetables witnessed an inflation print of 15.41% during the month, as against 11.64% in March.
India has successfully tested BrahMos extended-range missile from a fighter jet.
An extended-range version of BrahMos supersonic missile was successfully test-fired from a Su-30 MKI fighter aircraft on 12th May. The launch from the aircraft was as planned, and the missile achieved a direct hit on the designated target in the Bay of Bengal region, the Defence Ministry said in a statement. BrahMos missile flies at a speed of 2.8 Mach, or almost 3 times the speed of sound. The range of the advanced version of the missile is learned to have been extended to around 350 kilometers from original 290 kilometers. This was the first instance of the extended range version of the missile being fired from Su-30 MKI aircraft. The extended range capability of the missile, coupled with the high performance of Su-30 MKI aircraft, gives the Indian Air Force a strategic reach and allows it to dominate future battlefields.
Indian climber Paljeet scales 2 8,000-meter high peaks in Nepal within 2 weeks.
Paljeet Kaur from Himachal Pradesh conquered Mount Kanchenjunga on Thursday morning, said Pasang Sherpa, the director of Peak Promotion Private Limited. After successfully scaling the mountain peak, she arrived at Camp 3 and is now descending towards the base camp. Earlier, she had climbed Mount Annapurna on April 28th. This is her second 8,000 meters plus mountain this season, according to Sherpa. Now she is preparing to attempt the world's highest peaks, Everest and Lhotse, soon.
Heat wave back in Delhi as temperatures soar to 45 degrees.
Heat wave conditions are back to haunt the national capital as parts of Delhi saw the temperatures soaring to 44 to 45 degrees Celsius on May 12th as moisture-carrying easterly winds made way for hot and dry westerlies. The maximum temperature at Safdarjung Observatory, Delhi Space Station, rose to 42.5 degrees Celsius. It was 41.4 degrees Celsius on May 11th. The Meteorological Department has issued a yellow alert warning of a heat wave at most places in the capital on 13th and 14th of May. An orange alert has been issued to caution people about a severe heat wave on Sunday. The mercury is predicted to touch 45-degree mark at the Safdarjung Observatory on 15th May. Temperatures may leap to 46 to 47 degrees Celsius at isolated places, weather experts said.
The first song, titled Harihar of Bollywood Khiladi Akshay Kumar's star Prithvi Raj, is out. Let's take a look.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that's about all we have for you in that segment. Right now, let's go to take a look at all the functions and events taking place. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's about all we have for you in this segment. It's been wonderful having your company. And as I said before, that we've had the Kopio Queensland's Girmit Divas 2022, and a very, very successful and very well organized program. We will bring to you, scenes from that later in the week, or if the committee likes, we might be able to, rerun the show virtually from here, so that people who missed out can have a look at what happened and the full proceedings of that. Well, right now it's time to say goodbye until tomorrow, and don't forget that tomorrow we'll have the two segments, 9 a.m. and the 10 a.m. Today being Monday, we only had one segment, and tomorrow we'll also have the interview by Anu Sharma, who's going to be presenting Sakuntala this weekend. It's going to be a wonderful place. So, I would like to just remind you all that it's happening tomorrow. So we'd like to see you all here tomorrow. It's been wonderful having your company. Until tomorrow, it's goodbye from us.